What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be going over some of the best teams to use right now in Regulation H as you head into Toronto Regionals this weekend. So this is it, alright? Toronto is just a few days away, and this is the last big Regulation H event for the format, and you're just trying to get in your last few days of prep, and you're still trying to figure out what exactly are you going to see at Toronto. So we got you covered here. We're going to try and help you out, and we're going to showcase all of what we feel are the best teams to use right now. We'll go over how they work, some of their support options, how you can manage them, and ultimately, hopefully, you'll get some information that maybe you just did not have before. Because you can see on my screen, we got a lot of different teams to cover. And now, we're not going to go through all the nitty-gritty of each kind of squad. That would just take way too long. But what we can do is just give an overall summary on what to expect from these teams and how to really handle them, or what are they trying to do. And if anything, if you're still trying to find a team, maybe you might even find one from what we're going to give you here today. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about the first archetype and their variances that you can see. Alright, so be expected to see Doug over at Toronto, and we're going to go over some of the popular variances, and we'll start right here. Let's look at classic Doug, okay, because that has been very successful thus far. So again, if you don't know what Doug is, it's basically the acronym for Dragonite, Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and Dondozo. So 3 Pokemon that can dish out a lot of damage, and then after this, it's just all of your support options in terms of, making the core do what they need to do. So with Dragonite, look at this. You've got Tailwind here, which can make your entire team fast. So definitely something that the Dondozo and the Ursaluna are going to enjoy, right? So just Tailwind, Hyper Voice, Tailwind, Make It Rain. We've seen this before, on some of the hyper offensive teams, with Dondozo and Blood Moon. And Dragonite can give you that Tailwind here. And, with multi-scale, it can take some big attacks. So if you're trying to deny Tailwind, they're relying on this, so this way they can survive and, just give their entire team speed control afterwards. Right, the Blood Moon, usually on these type of teams, it'll be the Assault Vest variant, so it's going to be super bulky, and they'll probably have enough speed where they can outspeed an opposing Sneasler, right? So just think about some modest 116 variants here, where they'll have maybe just about this much in terms of speed, and then after that, they'll just round it out with something like this, almost 156 12 EVs, and then dumping the rest here into special defense. And some investment like this, they're just meant to take the close combat from another Sneasler, so just be on the lookout for that in terms of their spreads. But after that, this is usually Timid Dondozo. This is something either Careful or Impish Amoonguss. Some might be the rare Adamant case. And look at this, you've got the defensive backbone of VGC. You've got Intimidate, Fake Out, Redirection support. This is what's gonna happen with these squads, where they're going to just try and slow the game down and try and protect, a lot of their win cons by just going for these fake outs, these parting shots to weaken you out, and then potentially, click Spore to create space to try and set up the nasty plot here. And then you have, Sneasler over here, which is again just immediate burst damage, just like your Dondozo, which can dish that out as well. Close combat, Dire Claw, Throat Chop here. So sometimes you might even see coaching on this, where you might have coaching on the Dragonite. Just depends on their set, but this is very classic Doug here. Plays very balanced. The Tailwind is nice. Sometimes they don't even need it. The Haze is great at removing debuffs, as well as Dondozo shenanigans. So just be on the lookout for this. It is one of the classic ideas for Doug. Then you have this kind of variant where you have the Grimmsnarl screens to make the entire team bulky, right? So they'll probably forgo the Tailwind here, and give up the speed control in exchange for having extra screens, because you have a couple more win cons here, right? You have the Annihilate here with the bulk up, and you have the Volcarona here with Quiver Dance. So one way to really, help you do that is to have the screen support, so this way you're not taking so much damage. And then after that, once you've got your setup, and then you can just potentially sweet team. So this is another way to do it. And you still have Thunder Wave here for speed control, right? So Para Hacks is always going to be a thing. And this is still the AV, Blood Moon, Ursaluna. The Annihilate is pretty good here, with the Defiant support for the Dragonite. Just in case you want to Intimidate cycle the D-Knight, you'll see Annihilate combinations here. And Annihilate and Dragonite have been very good, as of late in Regulation H. So just be on the lookout for that duo, if anything. This idea also uses the screens idea, but you have the Ninetales here, and sometimes you'll either see Icy Wind for a little bit extra speed control, or you'll also see the Icicle Spear variant, where you're just trying to self-proc your Rage Fist, right? Because you're gonna just hit yourself multiple times here and just boost up your Rage Fist damage. So that's another way to also consider it. But some people have forgone that and just gone with something like Icy Wind, which is still totally fine. You're still having your classic D-Knight, Goldengo, Ursaluna core, of course. And then you have a little bit of redirection here with the Magmar. Clear Smog Magmar can be a thing here. Again, just wiping away those buffs, if anything. And then the D-Knight here can either still have Tailwind like you saw from the first team, or it can either have something like Ice Spinner or Extreme Speed. Ice Spinner being very valuable, just blowing up terrain there. But ultimately, the Ninetales can give you weather control, which is something that the other Doug teams did not have. So just be aware of that. But other than that, again, Dragonite, Goldengo, Ursaluna are still like very, very good on this team too. Then you have this one where you have the classic Fake Out brothers here with Incineroar and Rillaboom, just giving you that kind of support. And sometimes the Sneasler will also have Fake Out here. Otherwise, this is where like coaching looks really good here because you have more options to coach, not just the Dragonite, but you can even coach the Incin and the Rillaboom here. And then you still have a nasty plot Goldengo here. Again, like double, even technically triple Fake Out to try and create that space and set up that nasty plot. And the Blood Moon here, sometimes you'll either see this set with like Yawn with Covert Cloak, or you'll still see like the Assault Vest variants. But if you have Rillaboom here, then obviously this is where the Assault Vest will go, and then you'll have to look for like a different item on the Blood Moon. We have seen this Yawn idea, with Covert Cloak, where you're just trying to make the opponent make a decision, right? You go to sleep or you switch out and then you're out of position. So that's always the benefit of Yawn there. So be on the lookout for this. We've seen this before. And then we have this one. Of course, this this one is like the global challenge variant, but not really, because again, that one also had Goldengo here. But here's what you're looking at. You've got Tailwind, Whimsicott with Fake Tears. And, this also helps here with the Blood Moon Ursaluna, okay, and the Archaludon here, right? There's no Rain for the Archaludon, but you still have Power Herb, and you still have a Blood Moon here. So that's two very dominant special attackers. So just just look out for this. Sometimes they don't even have Fake Tears. Sometimes they just go for like straight another support move here. But Moonblast, Encore, Tailwind, you'll always see that. So that's okay. And then the D-Knight here, again, another standard set with E-Speed and Scale Shot and Haze. The Incineroar. Sometimes you'll see the Goggles here. Sometimes you'll see the Mirror. In this case, we have the Berry here, and the Goggles is here on the Annihilate. And the Annihilate can also go for coaching here. And you can just coach your Dragonite here. You can also go for Final Gambit shenanigans. So just in case you need to remove something. So you might even see some investment like this, where they're just max speed Jolly, and they have just about enough HP to take out something like an Archaludon, and then just the rest just goes into attack like this. I've even seen some Focus Sash variants like this in terms of their set. So just be on the lookout for these types of Annihilates. So they're not always like bulk up stuff. It's just like coaching and Final Gambit. And it just allows you to nuke something that maybe, the other 5 have trouble removing, right? So just consider that. But again, you see a lot of their ideas here, where it's just all about supporting the Dragonite, the Ursaluna, and the Goldengo. Do you have Intimidating Fake Out Pressure? Do you have Redirection Support? Do you have Screens? And do you have Weather Control? Those are like some things that you might say, like, shouldn't that be on every kind of team? Not necessarily, not all of them, okay? It just depends on how you want to round out your team. But yes, right, you've got your starting archetype, then you just got to figure out how to support it. And those options that we listed, those are pretty good options to support it, and very splashable on a lot of different teams too, right? And you're going to see that as we go through some of these other archetypes. So just be on the lookout for that, okay? But those are your Duck variants. Let's move on to Archaludon Rain. Okay, of course, the classic Arc Rain variants. There's so many ways to play it. I just picked like what I think are the strongest 5 right now, but by no means are these going to be like the only types of Arc Rain that you're going to see. But I did pick the ones with the best results right now, and I'm going to pick my favorite one right here. So let's look at this one. Of course, it is the classic August Archaludon Rain. This thing has been dominant for 4 months basically, right? And that's insane to say the least. Usually, time takes over and teams, they just don't do as well as they normally would have, because the meta has progressed. But this has withstood the test of time. This kind of Rain variant is still strong even right now, just because of the options that you have. Yes, we had the Incineroar Among Us backbone, but what are we supporting? You have the Pelipper, you have the Archaludon, Okay, and you have the Basculegion. That's like your classic rain core in Regulation H. Okay, you've got your backbone, and then you just add another Goldengo here. Again, a steel type on a rain team is always like another way to play this, because you either have something like King Gambit or you have something like Goldengo, because steel types on rain are very good because you remove the fire weakness because you are in rain. Now, again, you are still going to take super effective damage, but not as much because the rain reduces that fire damage altogether. And again, you have Amoonguss here with redirection, and you have Fake Out, and you have Tailwind. So you have a lot of different things to create the space needed to set up this Goldengo if this ends up being your win condition. But besides that, you know, they can start strong like this. Pelipper, Basculegion, and have the Archaludon in the back, and then have one of these homies close it out or support that kind of trio, right? So just, you know, they can just set the weather early, deal some big chip damage, you know, flip turn out of there, bring in the Arc, and then, you know, just go from there. So one thing's to always bring, you have your Rillabooms, you have your King Gambits, right? That does well here against the Basculegion Incineroar stuff. So that you can also consider bringing. But these Arc ideas, again, you just want to like pressure their Pelipper, like take away their weather if you can. And if they are sashed, then you might have to, again, just double in on this. But if you can take out the Pelipper and stall out the weather, that just goes well for you, and it makes it a little bit harder for the Archaludon to start ramping up their damage, especially, you know, in the rain when you're just clicking Electro Shot, right? The body press stuff, of course, is going to hurt, especially when they've taken a lot of damage. And sometimes Amoonguss and Archaludon are going to be very hard to remove, because again, if this thing takes any kind of damage, you're basically getting more defense buff. You still have the Spadef going for you with the Assault Vest, and then you just heal yourself with the Pollen Puff. And it gets a little bit harder to get to the Archaludon when you have the Amoonguss redirecting everything and healing yourself, right? So sometimes you'll see Sinistra, right? And, you know, Sinistra is doing a similar role to the Amoonguss, where you're just healing yourself and, you know, just redirecting things. But to each their own in terms of the cleric that you want to use, right? But that's one way to play it. So then another variant is this, where it's almost similar, but instead of Incineroar, you can add the Sneasler here, so a little bit more burst damage. You still get Fake Out pressure, but then you have Dire Claw, right? You know, just Dire Claw shenanigans altogether. So like, this is another way to play it. Same thing, right? Just different option in terms of that 6th slot. But here's the Rizabeth 6, right? So you've got Archaludon, Pelipper, and then you've got Sinistra and the Ursaluna. That's your 4, right? Because Sinistra has Trick Room here, and that's going to be good for your Ursaluna to be able to thrive under. And then at the same time, you can use the Sinistra with Trick Room to flip those Tailwind teams upside their head, right? And like we said, this is playing the Amoonguss role, where you're just able to redirect and heal the team, you know, with the Hospitality and Life Dew. So, you know, if Archaludon does take any types of damage, you can just heal it back up. Same thing with Dragonite. If you can find a way to keep healing your Dragonite and keep getting back multi-scale, it just makes it that much harder to remove. And then the Goldengo here with the Scarf. So now you can outspeed other Goldengos, right? So just be on the lookout. If you have a Goldengo and they have a Goldengo with the Scarf, they can just Shadow Ball you and then you just die, right? And so they always have that pin. But, you know, Ursaluna, again, just gives this team like a strong physical presence that can, you know, sweep under Trick Room. And, you know, Earthquake here next to D-Knight, next to Pelipper. Good synergy there. And you even have Wyguard on this Pelipper too. Some of them don't have it. Some of them will just like mix up these sets and just go like another Tailwind over here. And that's also what this Dragonite has, right? Tailwind, Dragonite. Sometimes Pelipper will have Tailwind, like we said. But, you know, Tailwind with Earthquake. So the same thing, like these Ursalunas might even have enough speed to just outspeed a Sneasler. So they'll go for like something like this with 95. They'll just max their attack like this. Put 12 points here just to optimize against the Flame Orb chip. And then just dump the rest here into special defense. And this is your Ursaluna set, right? A lot of them will have some speed on these types of 6. So if you're running the same kind of team, look at the speed tiers. Maybe you might even want to speed creep a little bit. Maybe you just take away all these Spadefs and just go here and dump the rest into speed, just to try and have the advantage in terms of speed creeping if they truly want to outspeed the Sneasler under Tailwind. So just be aware of that. But, you know, just in terms of how it plays, Dragonite, again, Scale Shot, just having the speed advantage, and then just closing things out with something like Arc, Pelipper, or even like Sinistra, Ursaluna, or you start strong with Goldengo with Pelipper here. So lots of different leads that you can do, as well as your endgame win cons, but the Sinistra makes things very difficult to remove some of their options. Then you've got this idea. This is a slightly older idea, but it's still strong even right now. You got Screens Rain, right? You got Pelipper, Archaludon, and Basculegion. You still have your returning 3 in terms of your core, but then you add the Mouse Ape idea here, and then you add Grimmsnarl Screens, right? So now what you can do is you can lead the Maushold Annihilate, or you can do Pelipper Basculegion, right? Or you can do Grimmsnarl plus any one of these technically, right? And then just set up your screens early, and then you also might even have the Misty Terrain tech, right? Where you can just shut down Sneasler shenanigans, right, and not get slapped. Okay, so that's another thing that you can consider. Parting Shot too. So again, it just depends on their Grimmsnarl set. This one doesn't have screens, but you might still see screens. But either way, the Annihilate would love screens because this is a bulk up set. You've got Sinistra here, not Sinistra. You got Maushold here, just trying to provide Friend Guard support and redirect. Sometimes you might even just see like, look, I don't want the Grimmsnarl screens. Just give me the Sinistra, right? And now I have double redirection, and now I still have healing. So what you'll often see is something like this, where you have the Annihilate Maushold with the Sinistra in the back, and then closing things out with something like Archaludon, right? So you're just flipping back between Maushold, Sinistra, you know, just getting and just alternating protects here, just healing your Annihilate bulk up stuff, and let this thing sweep. So you can play like that. Otherwise, you can just play like this, you know, Pelipper, Basculegion, you know, Archaludon in the back, and maybe Sinistra to close things out, and just in terms of supporting this kind of trio. Okay, so just be aware of that in terms of that reign. And then you have the Fede Campo variant, where you have still again Archaludon, Pelipper, Basculegion, and then you just go with Electabuzz here, and the Electabuzz Gambit combination. So again, Buzz is really good in terms of redirection and regulation H. I think it's just right next to Mungus right now in terms of like the best redirector as we end regulation H, because you can deny 2 of Sneasler's main options in terms of status, right? You can't get paralyzed, you can't get slept, right, because of Vital Spirit, and you're an electric type. And then you have Fast Taunt, and you got E-Webs for a little bit more speed control in the Tailwind Mirror, which is really good. And the Gambit here can really benefit against the Intimidate options, like from Incineroar, Gyarados for that matter. And just Gambit looks really good with black glasses, especially in Psychic Terrain stuff. You are a Dark type, you're not going to care about the Expanding Force shenanigans. Gambit has been on a bit of a decline, you know, as we head into the tail end of regulation H, but it's still like a good mon. It's still within the top 12, top 15 options there. So don't sleep on King Gambit. Just because it has declined doesn't mean it's like obsolete. It's still like high in usage compared to like everything else. So it's just nowhere near the top 3 usage it once was throughout the first 2.5 months of the format, right? Of course. But again, it's just all about this hard-hitting raid mode with Basculegion. You can start strong with it. You can close things out with Last Respects. And usually these are the Swift Swim variants. You're not going to see the adaptability sets on this type of team. Those are without the rain Pelipper stuff. So that's where you'll see that kind of Basculegion. But on this, it's always going to be like Swift Swim. So, and the arc stuff, right? Sometimes there'll be Terra Fairy, there'll be Terra Grass, there'll be Terra Bug. They may have Snarl, they may not have Snarl for damage mitigation. Snarl is so punishing right now. So the Snarl Archaludons, you've seen it in our videos, they just absolutely cripple a lot of these special attackers, especially if it's Blood Moon, Ursaluna, and Goldengo running around. You just Snarl both of those things, and they just hit like wet noodles after like 1 or 2 Snarls. So, but just be aware of that. But anyway, so if you want to use Archaludon Rain, use any of these 5. I think they're very good. But if you're not, just be aware of these 5. So I think Tyranitar Sand teams are going to be a big player as we head into this last regional. And Tyranitar's been picking up a little bit more as we head towards the last bit of regulation H for good reason. So let's preview this team for a second. But, you know, just to talk a little bit more about Tyranitar itself, like you have an advantage against all the other weathers, right? Like you deal super effective damage to Pelipper, you deal super effective damage to Torkoal, and you deal super effective damage to Ninetales, right? The other weathers, they can't say the same thing. And you know, you're getting this Spadef boost against all of them, right? All the other weathers are like special attackers, and if you get your sand out, you know, with the Assault Vest, they just don't do any damage to you. Like you can take a Weather Ball from a Pelipper, like even in the rain technically, right? So yeah, again, Tyranitar's so bulky, like all these stats, like base 100 HP, 100 Spadef, right? 110 defense. Okay, then you add the 134 attack. Like Tyranitar's been a really, really good Pokemon in this format. Now, once Regulation G comes around, Tyranitar goes back to sleep, okay, and remains dormant for a while because it can't match up with those Ubers, unfortunately, right? But maybe there might be a niche for it later on. Who knows? But as far as Regulation H is concerned, so how about this team here? This has been a little bit on the rise as of late, of course, because it has done well in a couple of regionals already. But you get the classic Tyranitar Excadrill combination, okay? So that's been really good historically. Okay, now Excadrill has been a little bit sus, right, in Regulation H, but with the Sash, rather than the Clear Amulet, you at least guarantee at least one life for it, right? Earthquake, high horsepower, Iron Head, so good solid ground coverage, and ground is going to be important because there's a lot of Pokemon within the top 12 that are weak to ground. Sneasler, Incineroar, Goldengo, Kingambit, Archaludon, these are all options that are weak to ground, so having ground coverage is very, very good. And the fact that you can have weather control and just outspeed everything in the format, that's very beneficial. And then T-Tar with this set, like again, knockoff, really good here. So you got a couple of knockoff users like Instant and Tyranitar, just removing key items here. Rock Slide, again, really good against the Charizard Sand teams that were running around for a bit. And then Low Kick is strong against something like Kingambit. Terra Blast, Terra Flying, you just nuke the Sneaslers, and then your Sand just breaks the Sash, and then they just die, right? So, like, good ideas there with Tyranitar all around. So, then you add your classic Incineroar and Amoonguss defensive backbone. You'll see this on a lot of different teams, like we mentioned. But how about Kilowattrel here, having a set here with choice specs here? You know, competitive, right? So, if you want to intimidate the Tyranitar and the Excadrill, you got another thing coming, because now you're just making the Kilowattrel do a lot more damage, right? 105 special attack is already not bad. Now you add specs and you add the competitive boost. Thunderbolts are going to be hitting hard. Same thing with these air slashes. Same thing with discharge here too, right? You can discharge next to Excadrill. So, and you can also earthquake next to it. So just be aware of that. And then how about adding Combo-O here as like an end game win con, right? Or even like in the early game stuff, where you can just set up your clanging scales and just go for these clanger soul stuff and just start nuking, right? And then Aura Sphere, another good fighting tech here that you can have here. Sometimes you might see like Terrafire, Flamethrower here. That's another thing that you can also consider. But besides that, again, Kamo, again, another good Pokemon here, you know, with Tyranitar Sand because of Overcoat. You're immune to powder stuff, you're immune to sand, so Amoonguss is not going to do anything for you. But overall, I think the Sand team is going to be really good as we head in there. Then you have the classic Nils Dunlop winning team here with the Corviknight, with the Power Trip Bulk Up set here. You've got the Magmar Redirection to support your team here. Indeedee Sneasler, again, a very classic duo here with Tyranitar and Excadrill. And then the Corviknight just becomes your endgame win con, where you're just going for these Bulk Up Roost, and then just get all your stats and then just start going for these Power Trips. That's also really good, but the key here is the recovery that you're getting with the Roost. And then Magmar here also being very supportive with just like helping hand stuff, Heat Wave. You know, again, Terra Flying also really nice with Excadrill over here. So they got a lot of offense here. And these Indeedees with Scarf, you know, fast expanding forces. Again, lots of damage, lots of big chip damage. Where stuff like T-Tar, Sneasler, and Corviknight can just finish things off in the end game. So, you know, again, just be on the lookout for that stuff if you see it. And then how about this one? This one was a recent Sand team that, you know, came about towards the end part of Regulation H. And it looks like a Regulation A team to an extent, right? You've got your classic Talonflame, Garchomp, Goldengo, Amoonguss core, right? Where Garchomp can click Earthquake next to a Talonflame. It can also click Earthquake next to a Terraflying Tyranitar. And then after that, you've got classic Amoonguss here with Goldengo. Again, you're just relying on Tailwind support and redirection to give you that space to, you know, set up the Nasty Plot, just click Make It Rain. But again, instead of Kilowattrel, we have the Milotic here for the competitive boost, where now you're just introducing Scald Burns. You can burn a D-Knight, you can burn a Sneasler, burn a Rillaboom, or maybe a Kingambit, for example. Icy Wind, Speed Control. You still have access to Haze here, right? So you can even haze away Intimidates, but also just haze away the opponent's buffs, the coaching, the bulk ups, remove all of that. Goggles Milotic here, getting around Instant Amoonguss, right? That's the whole point of this. Amoonguss can't spore you, and Incineroar is just going to make you stronger, and you're weak to Scald. So Milotic really good against that type of backbone there. And then, of course, we already know what Tyranitar is supposed to do over here. So even though the last sand team I want to look at, even though I didn't put it with like the sand stuff, it's like the Tyranitar on the Porygon Balance teams. So sometimes we've seen this also, where you just have your classic 5 with Incin, Amoonguss, P2 Ursaluna. Then you have Goldengo here, and this last slot is always like up for grabs. But Tyranitar has fit in here as well. Again, giving weather control, okay, and just being supportive too, while still dishing out like pretty decent damage altogether. So you might even see this heading into Toronto, where they just have Tyranitar here in this last slot. I even think this sand team you could even see. So this came from Perth, right? And they posted the rental, so you could even give this a go. You know, we're gonna use it on the channel relatively soon. But Tyranitar Excadrill over here. How about Gyarados as your Intimidator rather than Incineroar, right? Because Incineroar just adds way too many ground and fighting weaknesses on this team. So, you know, just adding Gyarados also has a good idea here. And we used Gyarados on the channel before too, when we used Jack's team, you know, that he used to get rank 1. So again, another Earthquake target that you can click next to. The Tailwind is coming from your Dragonite over here, right? Which again, we've seen plenty of times. And Inner Focus is correct, right? Because if you're gonna put Dragonite on a sand team like this, the sand is just gonna break your multi-scale. So it's better to go Inner Focus, where you're not susceptible to Intimidate, you're not susceptible to Fake Out, and you know, you don't just turn off your multi-scale when you're in the sand altogether. So Inner Focus D-Knight with Loaded Dice, very interesting set here. But again, Scale Shot, Low Kick, Tailwind, Haze, no Protect here. But again, the point is that this team does have Tailwind, which is something that Excadrill and Goldengo are going to enjoy. And it almost looks like, you know, you have the Incineroar here that you could put here. But again, Amoonguss just gives you that Trick Room matchup altogether. But I like this team too. So you might even just see this heading in there. So those are all like some pretty good sand teams. Now, I don't expect to see too much Dondozo in Toronto, but if there was a tour to actually try and play Dondozo, I think this is the one, because at this point, a lot of people have left their checks at home besides like the Haze Dragonite. So if they don't have that, and if they don't have Clear Smog, now you can actually take advantage and really lay it down there on the final regional for Regulation H. So what are the best Dondozo teams to use right now? How about this idea? So again, with Pelipper, Archaludon, and the Sneasler and the Indeedee here. So what you're trying to do essentially is, again, just use a 2-2-2 variant, right? Where you just have Expanding Force spam with a nice burst damage Pokemon in the Sneasler. Then you have Pelipper here that can give yourself and your team Tailwind. The Archaludon also, of course, enjoys the Pelipper support. Dondozo technically also likes Pelipper too, because again, now you just have harder hitting wave crashes, and that also just makes it look really good inside the weather, right? But then you have this variant, right? So this is from the Global Challenge, right? Top 32 team here. Again, and this was using Surf Dondozo, right? And it did use those 6, but look at this. Dondozo with Covert Cloak, okay? Terra Blast Surf, okay? Crazy set here. And then the Tatsugiri with the Ability Shield, okay? So be on the lookout for this. And then Sash Indeedee, Psychic Seed, Sneasler, Pelipper with Soak, okay? Tailwind, Soak, Hurricane, Muddy Water, and then the Choice Specs, Archaludon. This is absolutely a Global Challenge 6 in terms of just spinning it off of the standard 6 from the Dondozo side spam stuff. Then you have this idea where you still have Dondozo Tatsugiri, but then you have Talonflame here, clicking Tailwind, just like Pelipper, but then you have Blood Moon here, dealing a bunch of offensive pressure, and still the burst damage coming out of with Sneasler, right? So 2 Pokemon that can dish out physical and special damage, partnered very well with Talonflame. Same thing here with the Sneasler. So you don't even need Dondozo per se. You can just rely on those 4. And then Dondozo Tatsugiri can just be like something you bring in game 2 or game 3, for example, right? So that's another way. Then you have this idea, again, with Volcarona providing Tailwind, right? Another Tailwind setter for Dondozo Tatsugiri. Dragonite Annihilate, again, another good combination that you can rely on. It's not Coaching Ape, although you definitely can consider that idea. You can even coach your Dondozo per se, right? So bulk up here with the Annihilate, and then look at this Volcarona set. It's a support set with Struggle Bug, Will-O-Wisp, and Tailwind. And then the Archaludon here, no Pelipper here, so that means you're going to go with the Power Up Sturdy set here. So another very strong idea with Dondozo Tatsugiri. Then you have this one, where you're just like going complete hyper offense, more or less, where you still have a 2-2-2 idea with Dondozo Tatsugiri, then Whimsicott with Typhlosion, Tailwind Eruption, okay, Tailwind Make It Rain. Who doesn't enjoy that? And of course, another Power Herb Sturdy set with the Archaludon. So again, there's a couple Dondozo teams that you can consider, but these are the main ones right now that have had the best results over the past month or so. All right, let's look at some Sneasler Balance teams. Really what it comes down to is like you get to pick a dragon, something like Dragonite, and then just support it from here. So I think this is like the most popular Sneasler Balance team idea right now, where you have the coaching idea, where you can just coach the Dragonite, coach the Kingambit, coach the Rillaboom here, right? Rillaboom, Gambit, Buzz, those are like very classic, a trio, you know, just to support the Sneasler and the Dragonite here. But ideally, again, the D-Knight, once it has the coaching boost, it starts dealing a lot of damage with the Scale Shot here, right? Because then you become fast and you start hitting harder because you are getting an attack boost. The Gambit, same thing here. Sometimes you'll see an alternate idea where the Gambit is the Assault Vest Pokemon, and then the Rillaboom is going for something like, you know, Bullet Seed or just Miracle Seed as an item here. And then the Electabuzz, again, great redirector, and where the Volcarona becomes like your endgame win con, potentially, you know, with the leftovers Quiver Dance, Terra Fairy option here. So we've seen this 6 throughout the last month of regulationH, so like a very, very strong, successful 6. So I do expect to see more or less the same here. And then how about this variant where you have the Unaware Dondozo with Yawn and Fissure, right? Fissure, again, you can click that. It gives you an out, right? If you don't click it, you lose anyway. But if you click it, it can just bring you right back into the game. So Unaware is also really good. Just, again, ignoring stat stages altogether, and then just Yawn Pressure, where you just force them out, and then just reset all those buffs altogether. So that's also really nice. And then Magmar here, instead of Electabuzz, again, just giving you that Fire, Water, Grass option with Rillaboom here. But again, the Sneasler has coaching. The Gambit here, Rillaboom, and Dragonite, those are your prime targets for the coaching, technically speaking. So you can go with this variant. And then this one has the Kamo. This is the Ashton team here, right? Where we just had Kamo with the Sneasler here. You got the Rillaboom and Electabuzz coming yet again. Fake Out Redirection support, Yawn Pressure to try and create that space to set up the Kamo. And then the Sneasler, again, doesn't have coaching, doesn't need it, because again, we don't have that physical option in Dragonite or Baxcalibur here, so we can just, you know, go with a standard Fake Out set here. So you've got 2 Fake Out Pokemon, you got a Redirector, so you do have the setup, and then you add Goldengo here, just raw damage with Choice Specs here. Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Power Gem, again, a very solid special attacking set here from a Goldengo. Then you have this idea with the Ceruledge, the Gashadon. I don't think you'll see this per se, but you know, you might. It's still a pretty good 6. It's just not as common as some of the other variants. The Ceruledge, of course, with Flash Fire. Again, very good against Charizard, Heat Wave stuff, or like Eruption from Typhlosion, Eruption from Torkoal. And then the leftover set here, or even Clear Amulet, is also going to be relatively solid. Coaching and Bulk Up makes the Ceruledge hard to remove. Okay, just be aware of that. And then the Gashadon is just so annoying, you know, with just Clear Smog or even Yawn Pressure here. I know there's Ice Beam here, but you can also consider Yawn. Great to bring into the Archaludon Rain matchup, obviously. And then Rillaboom and Gambit. Right, so this is what I was talking about. Here's the Assault Vest on the Gambit, and then here's the Miracle Seed on the Rillaboom. So you can even just consider that. But I don't think this will be as common as some of the other ones. But again, I wouldn't put it past you. And then, of course, the Baxcalibur Balance. Now, this had its time, right? It had its 15 minutes of fame, but it's maybe you'll see like maybe 1 or 2 of these. I don't expect to see it as much as some of the other variants, like I said, but it's still pretty good. Like, again, another coaching idea with Sneasler, another Dragon, Rillaboom, Gambit, and Volcarona, of course, right? And then look at this Volcarona set, Rage Powder, right? So a little bit more, you know, redirection support, trying to set up this Sword Dance on the Gambit, you know, redirect the super effective fighting move against it, right? Because again, you are a bug type altogether. And then of course the Yawn, Fissure, Dondozo, yet again, just rounds things out over here. So those are your Sneasler Balance ideas. So of course they can just always lead Sneasler plus that Dragon, go for that coaching boost. So just be aware of that. This might be a good game to bring your Mirror Herb Incineroar, for example, right? To kind of just shut that down a little bit. And even if you're afraid of the Gambit, it doesn't really matter, because again, the boost that you would get to copy that Defiant will just remove the Gambit altogether, and they don't really have a way to kill you, because usually they're just that Black Glasses set, and they can't even outspeed you with the low kick, so you can just always pressure it right back. How about some of those Ninetales Balance team here? So let's look at this one, for example. This one is pretty popular right now. So look at this. Ninetales here just giving you weather control, but you don't necessarily go for the screens here. Why? Because the screens is over here on the clef key. So look at the clef key set. Light screen, reflect, misty terrain. Again, there's that tech that we mentioned earlier. Just invalidate the Sneasler stuff and the Among Us Spore shenanigans. Then Ninetales giving you that fast weather control that you can always have support, with Encore, Freeze Dry, and Blizzard. Freeze Dry is really good against some of the popular options right now. Blood Moon with the AV set. And then look at this. It's just a mouse hold Annihilate idea behind screens with Sinistra, right? So basically, we're just trying to keep the Annihilate healthy, right? And keep it safe, with Friend Guard, screens, and healing. And then let the Annihilate, carry with like most of this damage here. And then the Blood Moon can just kind of clean up in the end game. So this is one way to consider it. Then you have this idea, right? This team, again with the Magmar, Gambit, the Ninetales here, which does has the Aurora Veil. And then here's Sneasler with coaching. You can coach the Corviknight with Bulk Up. Garchomp, same thing. You can even coach this Garchomp, for example. And then Ninetales, again, just kind of rounds out your Dragon Fairy Steel Core, with Corviknight and as your Steel type. And also technically Gambit over here. But this is another way to consider it. Again, Gambit just kind of sits there and just deters the Intimidate options. Same thing with the Mirror Armor Corviknight, because again, you want to keep Garchomp and Sneasler out of the Intimidate, but this is where like coaching can really come in handy, right? And then Magmar, again, very solid redirector, especially with Gambit here. You can try and find ways to set up Swords Dance if they do have that Swords Dance set. This is an AV Gambit set, so that's something to always remember, but it is still like very, very solid altogether. So this is another way to do it. Okay, this one is like much older. This was like towards the beginning of the format, like the Agati and Palchua idea, where you just had Dragonite and Garchomp here. And sometimes this didn't even have Scale Shot back then, but you can definitely put Scale Shot now. And then you still have this Amoonguss Incineroar Backbone, and then the Ninetales here with that Misty Terrain tech, if it wants to go for that. Otherwise, you can also put Aurora Veil on this as well. So this is another one that's not as common as like the first two really, but it is still like up there in terms of like good usage. Then you have this one where you just have Sneasler but no Dragon, right? So it's almost like Sneasler Balance, where you still have Magmar here and you still have Rillaboom. And then look at this one. This is the Adaptability Choice Scarf set. So this is where you'll see this kind of Basculegion as opposed to the Rain Swift Swim Basculegion, where this is going to do a ton of damage with adaptability and then rely on the Choice Scarf to like outspeed everything, right? And then the Ninetales here doesn't necessarily have to give you Aurora Veil. Again, just Blizzard, Freeze Dry, Encore, Protect, Never Melt Ice. So it'll give you some decent damage here. But the Gambit here is a big time sweeper, especially with the Swords Dance setup. You got Fake Out Pressure here with the Rillaboom. You got Fake Out with the Sneasler here. So this is another way to also consider it. But Ninetales given nice options here as a special attacker on what is otherwise a super physical team. And then you had the Justin Tang variant, right, with Chongjun. Okay, this one had the Mirror Herb Arcanine here, of course, just to copy all those stat boosts, those coaching boosts, the speed boosts. Again, just burn all those physical attackers all together. You pick up things with extreme speed, of course. And then this Ninetales does have Aurora Veil, does also have Encore and Icy Wind. So very good Sash Ninetales set over here. Dragonite also, Scale Shot, Tailwind, which a lot of your options definitely appreciate the Tailwind support, especially Primarina, which has fallen quite a bit as the format has progressed. And then the Annihilate Pier, again, also great ideas with the Dragonite here, just to be able to deter the Intimidate options against you, and then just set up bulk ups and just go from there, right? Goldango also loves the screens, loves the Tailwind idea. Again, it is nasty plot leftovers, right? So a little bit of recovery, which is very good in terms of extending its longevity. But yeah, this was a really cool team. I did enjoy it, and you're definitely going to see some people try and use it within that regional. So just be on the lookout for that kind of Ninetales team over there. Now, as far as the Torkoal Sun teams are concerned, I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Of course, the hard Trick Room way is one way, or the balanced Porygon way being the other way. But either way, listen, I'm just glad Charizard had its imprint on a meta where where there wasn't Dynamax, right? Because for a long time, people were saying, outside of Max, what else are you going to really do with this thing? Well, we found our answer in this format. So Torkoal Zard, again, just bringing out the sun and just making this thing do so much damage with the Choice Spec Solar Power idea. Even if it's a resisted hit, like the Heat Wave is still doing so much damage, right? Especially when you do have like these multipliers going into effect. And you know, you still have Jump Bluff here, like a really cool support Pokemon. Rage Powder, Redirection support, Sunny Day, Manual Sun against like Pelipper teams that want to come in on the Torkoal, Sleep Powder shenanigans, you know, just don't miss, right? So they can just kind of disable you like up to 3 turns, if anything. And then of course the Ursaluna instant P2 engine, you know, the Trick Room mode to the squad, right? So you can still do Eruption stuff. Like you'd still do instant P2 Parting Shot into the Torkoal, click Eruption, and things just melt, right? And then you can even have Ursaluna come in and finish the job, right, in Trick Room. Or you can go like the fast mode here by just having, you know, Zard, Torkoal, you know, overheat something, eject pack, you know, bring in something like Jump Bluff or P2 or Instant. You could just do something like that and then just bring the Torkoal later on, potentially. You could do like P2 Zard, right? You could do a whole lot of different leads, and it's very flexible. And again, it's just all about, do you want to play to the Ursaluna engine or do you want to play to like the fast mode with like Jump Bluff, Zard, Torkoal ideas? Then you have the Joseph Ugarte idea with the Typhlosion Dragonite Gambit here. He's been using this 6 for a very, very long time. And he's had like great results with it, obviously. But same ideas, but look, Burning Jealousy, Helping Hand Torkoal. Like, of course, we know, again, Eject Pack overheat, but like Helping Hand with Typhlosion, Helping Hand with D-Knight and Chomp is also very strong here. Terra Flying makes it so that you can Earthquake next to the Torkoal, so you have to consider that. The Jump Bluff, of course, has some pretty good synergy with Chomp, where you can just Earthquake next to that because it is a flying type. And the Gambit is also like Terra Flying as well. So like this is all great options that we have here with like the Sun stuff. But then you just have, you know, these hard Trick Room ideas where you just have Indeedee, Hatterene, Torkoal, Ursaluna, right? Just straight up hard Trick Room. Then you add even something like Armor Rouge here. And then how about the Egg with the Executor, right? With Chlorophyll. So this way you get like a fast mode and a slow mode. And then you have some immunity to Amoonguss. You have Expanding Force Pressure. You have Trick Room too. You have a Focus Sash idea here. So, you know, we've seen this before, you know, with the Executor being placed on some of these teams. And then how about this idea where like you're mixing it up a little bit with like the balance with the hard Trick Room stuff. So again, Indeedee, Hatterene, Torkoal, Ursaluna, but then you have Zard here with the Scarf. Okay, Scarf Zard, you know, in the sun here, and then Gallade is really good here against the King Gambit matchup or just like other dark types in general. So lots of ideas that you can consider with Torkoal Sun, but these are the ones that have had like consistent results right now. There's others, of course. So you may see that, like I've even seen like the Hisuian Lilligant variant. Of course, that one we've known for a while now. But the Sun teams with Torkoal, again, just be on the lookout for those. And again, it's just all about how do they want to play the Torkoal. And, you know, based off of that, like, do you want to play towards the slow mode or do you want to play towards the fast mode? So lots of flexible ideas that you can do with either of those options. Okay, with the Porygon Balance teams, again, what it really comes down to is you have like the same 5 always, most of the time. And then that last 6 mon is just like up for grabs, and it depends on how you want to play the team, okay? But in terms of your 5, like I'll bring up the Flamigo variant, for example. So you're still gonna do like instant Porygon, Amoonguss with Ursaluna and Goldengo, right? So that one is like a mainstay, you know, and then this last slot here is the one that's up for grabs. So like if you want to have something for the King Gambit, Flamigo looks really good here. Scrappy, you can't get intimidated. Do Wing Beat, you can get around the Sneasler. Sash ideas. Wyguard is very good against spread damage altogether. And then, of course, the hard-hitting close combat from a base 115 attack Pokemon here. So Flamigo, pretty good on a team like this. And otherwise, it's pretty standard. Cobra Cloak Amoonguss is also really cool. Leftovers Goldengo, you might even see like Citrus Berry or even Life Orb Goldengo here. And then Instant P2. Like, again, with these P2s, you'll see like Terra Blast, Terra Fighting. Again, very good into the Gambit idea. And then Ice Beam for those Dragon types altogether. It makes a lot of sense. The one that's on the rise right now is the Hydreigon one, and we made a rental team out of this, so if you want to use it, feel free to use it. But Tailwind and Snarl, okay, very useful because you've already got Incineroar with the physical attack damage reduction. Now you add special attack damage reduction with Snarl. Then you add Tailwind with Hydreigon, okay, along with Trick Wound with the Porygon. So you have 2 forms of speed control, and you have options that can do well in both. Goldengo is not that fast, but not that slow, so you can play it towards the Tailwind or the Trick Room idea altogether. And you still have Nasty Plot here. Again, you've got the space with the Fake Out and the Redirection to be able to support you. And like we mentioned with the Ursaluna, they're probably going to have enough speed to outspeed the Sneasler, so you can do that. And again, another Pokemon that has Earthquake on it that you want your 6th slot to have synergy with. So you can Earthquake next to a Hydreigon, the same way Garchomp was able to Earthquake next to Hydreigon, and it works out. So you can play it like this, or you could do this idea with the Vivian, which has been always pretty good already. You know, again, with the Vivian, just giving you Sleep Powder, Tailwind support, even Rage Powder technically. So if you don't want to play towards the Tailwind, you can go with the Rage Powder. You can lead this with P2 and, you know, just try and set up your Trick Room. Again, another flying type that you can Earthquake next to with the Ursaluna. Goldengo, same thing, just has some pretty good synergy with the Vivian, the Instant altogether. And then you sneak in the Primarina here, right? With Hyper Voice, Moonblast, and Haze. So again, Haze wiping away buffs and debuffs, and then Hyper Voice spam is always like pretty consistent. Then you can combine 2 types of teams. You can combine Pelipper, Archaludon with the Trick Room core. And again, Archaludon can thrive in either Trick Room or Tailwind, because just like Goldengo, it's not that fast, but not that slow either. And you still have another flying type that you can Earthquake next to, which Ursaluna can definitely do at the same time, right? So, and White Guard Pelipper with Earthquake is also really good with the Ursaluna, because again, you can stop like Heat Wave stuff or just like other spread moves like Expanding Force. So that's really good. And then Substitute Ursaluna was like an older Regulation H tech, but can still come into play here. And you might even see this in Regulation G as well, when there's a lot more Incineroar, of course. But again, you still have the Instant P2 among his shenanigans, right? We've already showed you the Tyranitar idea when we spoke about Sand teams. How about you just add Sneasler, right? Instant Amoonguss P2, Ursaluna, Goldengo, then you just add Sneasler with Terra Flying, and then again, you can Earthquake next to it. You can coach your Ursaluna now, which is kind of funny. You can coach it, and now you have +1 Facades, +1 Earthquakes, +1 Headlong Rushes, which is really funny. And then if you want to intimidate the Ursaluna, you can offset it by just going for coaching, so now you're just back to neutral altogether. You can even coach your P2, right? If you get a physical boost to download, you can just coach it, and then now it can go for these Terra Blast that are physical, and then at the same time, of course, enjoy the defense boost altogether. So lots of different ideas with P2. Really, again, what it really comes down to is have that key 5 core, and then that last slot is up for grabs, and we showed you like 6 different variants of that, what could be in that last 6 slot. You might even see Dragonite in that last 6 slot. Like Dragonite also, again, another flying type that you can put next to Ursaluna that also gets access to Tailwind. That also works as well, and you probably might even see that in Toronto, because it has been done before already. All right, last, let's just cover some of the hyper offense teams. So let's look at this one first. So you know what you're getting with Talonflame and Blood Moon, right? You click Tailwind, you click Hyper Voice, you click Tailwind, you click Blood Moon. That we already know. Then you add these 2 guys, the Indeedee and the Sneasler, the male Indeedee, right? So Tailwind, Expanding Force, or just like leading the Indeedee with the Sneasler, activate your Unburden with Psychic Seeds. And then you have the Terra Dark option, which is great into the Goldengos, which is something that you struggle to hit altogether, right? And then you add Electabuzz, again, support, just redirecting everything, fast taunt user, and, you know, extra speed control with Electro Web. And then you add good old reliable Dragonite that you can always use Skill Shot and Stomping Tantrum with. You know, you don't need coaching on the Sneasler for this, but again, the D-Knight can just come in and start chipping away at things, you know, with Scale Shot. So this is one hyper offensive way. We even have a rental on this, so you can even just pull that up. Otherwise, if you don't like the D-Knight, you can just slap in Incineroar and go to more of a supportive idea where you have all your offense here with Indeedee and the Blood Moon and the Sneasler, right? So you have all that burst damage there. Now you just add support with Buzz and Incineroar. So like the Buzz almost filling in that Amoonguss role, but not really, right? It's just another redirector that you have in place of it. But again, more speed control, follow me, taunt pressure, fake out, parting shot, positional ideas, and then of course Talonflame here, Will-O-Wisp also, and then again, like we mentioned with Dueling Beat, just breaking Sash altogether. So that's another way you can play it. Otherwise, you can do stuff like this with like you know, Talonflame, Garchomp, and Goldengo, right? The classic Regulation A idea. Then you add something like Dragonite 2, and again, another Pokemon that you can click right next to. Sneasler here, Coach, either one of these options, and then the Archaludon here with the Power Herb set with Sturdy, because again, there is no Pelipper here. So you can play it towards that. Otherwise, this type of idea with the fake tiers, right, which is something that we showed earlier, you've got Ursaluna and Goldengo. Now you can even consider the Scarf Hydreigon here, right? So that's also pretty interesting. But again, you know, Whimsicott, Blood Moon, Goldengo, and Sneasler, this is like a key 4 that you can always run. And then just click Tailwind and just nuke things, right? And just have either of the options come in the back and finish things off after everything has been chipped so much. So that's another one. And then you can even look at this variant where you have the Hisuian Arcanine here, which is great into the Rillaboom, right? But again, Hisuian Arcanine also definitely enjoys the Tailwind support. We saw this a lot back in the, you know, the Paradox formats where you can just bring in Tornadus, click Tailwind. Oh man, Tornadus. It's been a while since we used Tornadus, man. All right, we're gonna have to use that again in a couple of weeks, so we gotta get ready. But Arcanine, Flare Blitz, Ursaluna, Blood Moon stuff, Sneasler, Indeedee, of course, and then your Tailwind Center is actually Murkrow here. And the whole idea is, you know, with Sunny Day, you can make Arcanine hit harder with Flare Blitz. You can also have Haze here, which is something that you weren't getting with Whimsicott and Talonflame. And then Manual Weather with Sunny Day, like we mentioned earlier. You still get that with Whimsicott and stuff like that. But Murkrow, Foul Play against coaching stuff is going to do a lot of damage. So just be unaware of that. But this is just another way to play the Blood Moon Hyper offense stuff. But usually these guys are Life Orb, right? Some of them are Assault Vest, like we just showed you over there. But the Life Orb Timid sets are usually the way to go because you just want to be super fast and deal a ton of damage altogether, which is what we're looking for here, right? So if you have Electabuzz here, you get to outspeed the Zard, right? You outspeed base 100s, you know, because all you need is 112. After Electroweb, you outspeed Zard, and then you just nuke it with something like Hyper Voice or even just like Blood Moon altogether. So yeah, but that's it. So let's give you some final thoughts as we wrap it up here, just in terms of like all the teams that we covered here. But yeah, so hopefully we've covered a good amount of teams that hopefully gave you some information as to what to expect. So, you know, again, we looked at the Doug teams, you know, with the Dragonite, Ursaluna, Goldengo, with all their support options. We looked at all the Archaludon Rain ideas, not all of them, of course, but the 5 most popular ones that we've seen. Again, you're going to see like the Rise of Bet 6, you're going to see Basculegion, Instant Amoonguss cores. Sometimes you'll see the Mousehold Annihilate idea. And then some sand teams with Tyranitar, Excadrill, be expected to see that with some competitive Pokemon like Milotic or the Kilowattrel. Ninetales Balance teams, usually they'll have Sneasler and a Dragon type also. That's also really solid. Same thing here with Dondozo teams. Again, I don't expect to see too many Dozo teams, but there's always going to be a couple of players that are banking on the fact that people are just going to drop their supports for it and then just try and do well with it. But just in case, you know, we've spotlighted some of the more popular Dondozo cores right now. Sneasler Balance, you know, it just comes down to Rillaboom, Gambit, and pick your support type with Sneasler and a Dragon type, ideally, right? Torkoal Sun teams, again, the Torkoal can either be a supporter Pokemon or a sweeper here. It enables the Charizard if you have it. Otherwise, it's just purely a sweeper on those hard Trick Room variants. The P2 Balance teams, you got your classic 5 with Instant Amoonguss, P2, Ursaluna, Goldengo, and then pick a 6 Pokemon there that you can fill in for that last slot there. And then the Blood Moon offense, Tailwind Setter, Blood Moon, Indeedee, Sneasler, last 2 options. Just really depends on the player. But yeah, so hopefully, maybe if you knew all of this stuff, but you still needed to pick up a team, hopefully we gave you some inspiration and we gave you an idea on what team to use. But yeah, if you're competing, best of luck. Hopefully we've helped you out in your preparation. But yeah, we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.